What's going on, everybody? It's Neil from 2AF. We'll do a video about changing triggers. Triggers are a popular upgrade for AR-15s. There's probably too many of them on the market. There's a lot of them that are really good. There's a lot of them that are kind of crummy. I should point out that the biggest thing that is wrong with trigger upgrades is sometimes really you can get them too light. I know a lot of people just automatically equate lighter trigger to more accuracy. Before I go on, I'll say that simply isn't true. The gun is capable of the accuracy that it's capable of. And if you have a stock piece of junk, creepy trigger in there, or a 1 pound trigger in there, the gun is as accurate as it is. The only thing the trigger really does is it makes it more likely on a bad trigger for you to make a mistake, or less likely with a light trigger for you to make a mistake. And you can get to the point where the trigger is really, it's too light and it's not helping you anymore, and really it just becomes dangerous, and it also can become unreliable. So poor reliability and being too light are probably the two biggest things that are wrong with a lot of the trigger upgrades. We are going to use this Centurion AST, the Advanced Sniper Trigger. Fantastic trigger for sub $100. Probably our most popular trigger that we sell is the Geissele SSAE, which is about a 3.5, 4.5 pound trigger, somewhere in there. This probably is not as nice a trigger as that, but it's under half price. And it is not the SSAE is not twice as good a trigger. This is a very, very good trigger for sub $100. And anyway, enough of that. We'll get into how we really change these triggers. So the first thing you want to do when you're changing a trigger is I will take the safety off and ease the trigger down. Don't let this smack onto here. When the upper is on it, that trigger is stopped by your bolt and firing, or your bolt carrier and firing pin. When the upper is off, there is nothing on it to stop, and it can slam into the front of your lower here, and done enough, it can cause damage. So ease that trigger down. Now it can be a roll pin punch, it can be something else, but you're going to just push this straight out. You might need a hammer to get it going, but you probably don't. Just push that straight out. The pin will come out. Hold on to the hammer because it's under spring tension now and there's no pin holding it. And this will come out. Do the same thing with the trigger pin. Just push it straight out. And once that's out, you have your trigger and disconnector are going to come out. All right. Now that is done. We're going to get our new trigger. This trigger is coming with the trigger pin and hammer pin already installed. And you're going to have to take those out. I will usually use, this is a slave pin that I take, that I have from like Geissele triggers. And I will push this pin out and use this slave pin. What that does is it's going to hold this disconnector in place. This disconnector is not connected to this trigger. So the pin that goes through here goes through a hole that's in the disconnector. So this slave pin can hold it all together, and it's no wider than the trigger body. So now you can just drop the trigger in here and everything gets held in place. I will usually put a small dab of oil on the corners of the hammer and disconnector, which connect to each other. So sometimes, every once in a while, and honestly, I don't know why it is, but every once in a while, you have to take the safety out to fit the tail end of the trigger underneath there. Luckily, on this one, I don't have to do that. I just know that that's not an uncommon occurrence, and you can see it from time to time. So now, I'm trying to line that hole up with the hole that's in the lower. Once I find the right spot, I'll hold that in place and just push this through. Sometimes you'll need a hammer to make that happen. When I say hammer, I should say a light plastic or rubber mallet. You don't need anything heavy. I should also reiterate that these trigger and hammer pins, on most of them, not all of them, but on most of them, if they look like this, there's no front and there's no back. So it doesn't matter which way you put them in. If there's a groove in the center and a groove on one or both sides, right? It doesn't matter which way you put them in. It doesn't matter if this is used for the trigger or the hammer. It doesn't matter if you push it in this way or if you push it in this way. It'll all do the same thing. But keep in mind that is only if it's got both of them have this center groove and a groove on the end. I've definitely seen some that are not like that. If they're not like this, then they are directional, or they work with only one or the other. So now we've got the hammer, and again, I'll just put that little bit of oil on those connecting spots where this is going to hit the trigger. Your trigger, or I'm sorry, your hammer spring here, right? This squared off part here is the back, right? So don't put it in like this. You can put it in like this and it'll fit in there, but it's not going to work. So make sure that is towards the back. Now these legs that are here, these legs of the spring, they are going to go towards the back, right? And they are going to rest on that trigger pin that you just put through. So those legs are going to go over that hole. Now what I'll do from here is the bottom of the trigger, I'm going to push it diagonal towards the mag well this way, right? And at the same time, the top of the hammer, I'm going to cock it back towards the grip. So altogether, what that's going to do is I'm cocking this top end back and I'm pushing that bottom end forward, and it's going to catch. You'll hear it. All right, so it's caught on there. So now this is being held in place, but just barely. It's just barely held in place. You can knock this around a little and it'll come out. So be careful and hold this. And then line that hole up again, right? Once that's lined up, you can push the pin through. And I'll just knock it. When you get to here, it's very common, if you do it from this side or this side, when you get to here, it's really common for it to stop just short of being all the way in. And that's only because it's not lined up over here. All right, so that isn't lined up. All you got to do is wiggle the trigger a little bit, line up that hole, and then it pushes right through. All right, so now your trigger's installed. Just do a function test. Safety's off, pull the trigger, make sure that it goes. Hold the trigger to the rear and reset it and let it go. And just as long as it doesn't fly forward, then you know your disconnector is working. So again, pull the trigger, it goes off, prevent it from flying forward, recock the trigger, let go of the trigger, and make sure that the disconnector is working. Turn the safety on, try to pull the trigger, make sure that the safety is working. Just to show you how this all works together, this pin, we got your hammer pin going through, I'm sorry, your trigger pin, well, they're both the same, but you get the pin going through the trigger, right? And those grooves, what are they doing? Remember how I said these legs go over the trigger pin? That's what it's doing. That groove is catching this leg right here. That's why it doesn't matter if it goes in left or right, because if it's not on this side catching this, it's going to be on this side catching this one, right? So that is another reason why you really don't need anti-rotation or captivated pins, because just as long as your trigger is in there correctly and your trigger and hammer springs have enough tension, they're going to hold just fine. If your pins are walking out, chances are it's either installed incorrectly or you need some new legs here. And then again, that same pin, or that same pin, when we use it for the hammer. Now these hammers, let me see if you can see this here. You see that groove right in the middle of the hammer here, and you can see another wire that's in here. It's called the J hook or the J spring. That spring goes in here. It's called that because it goes in here, and then it's like a J, and then you can see right through the hammer here, that hole, you see that's the other end of it. Now, through the hole that's here in your hammer, you probably can't see it there, but that wire or that J-spring is going through there, and that's what catches on this center groove that's in your pin. And that's why this one won't fly out either way. So again, if your trigger or hammer pins are walking out on you, there's a good chance you either have it installed incorrectly or something's wrong with your springs. It's a very cheap fix to fix those, and using your standard pins is probably a lot better than getting some anti-rotation captivated pin set. So anyway, long video about this, but there's a lot to go over. Thanks for being 2AF. If you got any questions, just email, call, send a message, let me know. And don't forget to get signed up on the website for notifications. You'll find out when hard to get products make it to the site. All right, man. Thanks. Have a great day.